Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here, like always, to take some pretty dense source material and boil it down into the strategic knowledge you need fast. And today, we're tackling something that, well, it drives businesses crazy, it's expensive, it's frustrating employee turnover, especially when it's the new folks heading for the door. That churn, it's not just a line item on a budget, it really does kill productivity, team morale, all of it. So our focus today is on this specific framework, the NorthStar Leadership Suite from QuotaPro Leadership. The whole idea is to shift retention away from just reacting after someone quits towards something proactive, something measurable, a real business strategy.
Yeah, and that shift is, well, it's absolutely central to what we're seeing in the sources. There's this big push in HR, in talent, to stop just counting who left last quarter. Instead, the focus is shifting towards predicting, who might leave next. Like the QuotaPro CEO said, retention isn't reactive anymore. It's strategic. It's about protecting that big investment you made in hiring them.
Exactly. That's the challenge. So for you listening, we're going to unpack this NorthStar system QuotaPro has built. We'll look at the data they're using, how they're trying to predict things. And maybe most importantly, we'll really dig into the top 10 reasons employees actually leave. Because, that's the human side of the equation the tech is trying to solve. Okay, let's get into it. All right, strategy always starts with measurement, right? So let's look at their baseline tool first. QuotaPro calls it the attrition index. Seems like it's designed to put a hard dollar figure on turnover. They're aiming it at chief people officers, HR directors, but also CFOs, which is interesting. So tell me, how does this tool go beyond just like the cost of the empty chair? How does it quantify the real cost?
Well, that's the key difference. It's not just saying, okay, we lost 6 months of salary while we searched for a replacement. The index tries to quantify the operational drag. It factors in things like the hit to team morale when someone leaves, the loss of that specific knowledge they had, maybe customer relationships, and also the time it takes for the new person to really get up to speed, time to competency. So by adding up all these often overlooked costs, it gives you a much more comprehensive and frankly defensible number for the total cost of turnover.
Ah, okay. So it makes the soft costs harder, more tangible.
Exactly. And being able to model that cost accurately is, well, it's crucial when you need to justify spending money to fix the problem. Yeah. Think about it. If you can walk into the CFO's office and say, look, our 15% attrition isn't just annoying, it's costing us, say, $5 million a year when you factor in everything.
Okay.
Then asking for $500 for like a serious leadership development program, maybe their CRL program they mentioned, suddenly looks like a pretty smart financial move. It frames retention as an investment with a calculable ROI.
Right. It shifts the conversation from HR expense to business investment. I see.
So the calculator and the benchmarking, those are the features. But the ROI modeling is the strategic punch. But hang on, if we're talking cultural costs, how does an index actually measure something fuzzy like, I don't know, bad morale, or that whole quiet quitting thing where people are checked out but still there?
That's a fair question. It's tricky. The sources suggest the index doesn't measure morale directly in real time, but it correlates past attrition numbers with other historical data points that hint at engagement levels. Things like participation rates in internal surveys, how long projects typically take versus benchmarks, maybe even tracking internal conflict resolution cases. It's about finding patterns. So while it's best at costing actual resignations, these correlations help estimate the cost of that disengagement that often comes before someone quits. It adds evidence, makes the cost calculation less arbitrary. It links it back to operational data points.
Okay, got it. So using past patterns to ground the cost estimates for future risk, that makes sense for justifying budgets. And their tagline fits. Measure what matters, retain what counts. Okay, so that's measuring the past damage. Now let's shift to what the sources really hype up as the innovation. Moving from measurement to prediction, the diagnostic tool, the retention signal. What makes this thing tick? What's the engine looking for, especially in those crucial first few months of a new hire? Any non-obvious signals?
Right. This is where it gets proactive. The retention signal is designed to pick up on those really early, often subtle warning signs, especially in, say, the first 90 days. It's not just looking at basic HR data like did they complete orientation? It's integrating data points that signal connection and clarity, or the lack thereof.
Like what specifically?
Well, it might track things like a noticeable drop in how often a manager has one-on-ones with the new hire, based on calendar data perhaps, or maybe low scores on peer feedback during their first project. And a big one seems to be completion rates and scores on required early training modules compared to their cohort. If someone's, skipping the optional team lunches, not getting FaceTime with their manager, and struggling with the initial training, the signal starts flashing. The system then tries to translate that pattern into actionable guidance for the manager. The goal is clear. ROI, stop the bleeding, protect that hiring investment before it walks out the door.
Okay, the engine makes sense. But here's a potential pitfall, right?
Right.
With any system using internal data, if I'm a manager and I know this system flags employees if I don't meet with them enough or if I give them low scores, isn't there a risk I just start gaming the system? Schedule fake meetings or inflate feedback scores to make myself look good? How do they stop that?
That's a really critical point. And yeah, it's the Achilles heel of any system relying on human input. The sources indicate the model is actually designed to look for inconsistencies, not just raw low scores. So, for example, if a manager logs tons of check-ins, like ticking the box, but the new hire's anonymous engagement survey answers say they feel invisible or unsupported, that mismatch flags the manager's input reliability, not just the employee's risk.
Interesting.
Yeah, it sort of forces the system, and hopefully the managers, to value honest, qualitative feedback over just hitting quantitative targets. It tries to sniff out the gaming.
That's clever. So it's auditing the manager's interaction quality, not just tracking the employee's behavior. It needs that self-correcting element. Okay, that makes more sense. All right, before we dive into the why people leave the human stuff, let's quickly map this out. We've thrown around some names, some acronyms. For listeners trying to keep track, how does this all fit together in their big picture? This NorthStar architecture.
Yeah, good idea. Think of it basically as 4 layers, kind of moving from the big idea down to the specific tools and future plans. So layer 1 is the NorthStar leadership methodology. That's the core philosophy, how we think leaders should lead.
Foundation, okay.
Layer 2 is the attrition index. That's the measurement piece we just talked about, quantifying the cost, modeling the ROI.
Got it. Measure the problem.
Layer 3 is the retention signal. That's the predictive diagnostic, using that real-time behavioral data to flag the flight risk.
Predict the problem.
Exactly. And then layer 4 is the future piece, NorthStar AI. This is planned as the AI-powered coaching platform that will integrate everything. And when we mention things like CRL or MRL certified retention leader, master retention leader, those are the training programs that teach managers the methodology needed to actually do something constructive when the signal flags an issue.
Okay.
So the whole system, the whole ecosystem is designed to take complex data, make it understandable for executives, and empower managers to act early to keep their talent.
Right. Methodology, measure, predict, coach. Makes sense. Okay, now let's shift gears. We've talked about the tools, the how. Let's talk about the why, the human problems these tools are trying to get ahead of. The sources lay out the top 10 reasons new employees leave. This list is basically what the retention signal is hunting for signs of. When you look at this list, what really jumps out at you?
What's, I think, most striking is how much of it comes down to culture, communication, and leadership, and how relatively low down the list pure compensation is. It's usually around number 9. That really underlines why these predictive tools can't just look at salary data. They have to capture those more subtle behavioral and experiential cues.
Let's dig into some of those specific reasons, especially the qualitative quotes they include. They feel very real. The number 1 reason is poor onboarding experience. That's more than just messing up the paperwork, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's captured perfectly by that quote. I felt lost from day one. No one showed me how things really work here. It's a failure of integration, really. Social integration, workflow integration. The new hire might have their laptop, their security badge, but they have no context. Who do I ask for help? What are the unspoken rules? What does success even look like in the first month?
Yeah.
If they spend that first week feeling confused, maybe a bit isolated, their commitment just plummets, they haven't built any psychological connection yet, flight risk goes way up.
And right behind that feeling of being lost is number 2. Misaligned expectations. That classic gap between the job ad or the interview and the day-to-day reality.
Yep. That quote, the job isn't what I thought it would be based on the interview. That's a killer. It signals a breakdown between recruiting and the actual hiring manager, or worse, maybe the role was deliberately oversold.
Ouch.
Right. It just shatters trust right out of the gate. The predictive signal might pick this up as like a sudden drop in engagement, or maybe the person avoids tasks that weren't really mentioned up front.
Then you get into the relationship stuff. Lack of manager support. That's always high on these lists. The feeling is, my manager doesn't check in or offer feedback. I feel invisible.
Invisible. That's such a powerful and toxic word for a new hire. They need guidance. They need connection, like scaffolding when they start. If the manager doesn't make that shift from being the enthusiastic recruiter during the interview to being the supportive coach on day one, the new hire feels adrift.
Yeah.
And that's where a tool like the retention signal really aims to add value by potentially flagging that absence of crucial check-ins or feedback loops. If the manager is MIA, the employee logically starts looking elsewhere for a place they won't feel invisible.
And then there's the wider workplace environment. Things like weak culture fit and seeing early signs of dysfunction. Those must be things that new eyes spot really quickly.
Totally. New hires come in with a fresh perspective, right? They haven't gotten used to the way things are. So if they immediately see, like the sources say, toxic behavior between colleagues or just chaotic communication between departments, they see that as the norm. They think, whoa, I joined a dumpster fire.
Right, not a well-oiled machine.
Exactly. And that culture fit, quote, I don't see the company's values in action, that points to perceived hypocrisy. People pick up on that disconnect super fast. These cultural red flags often push people out even faster than money concerns.
And one more key one, no clear career path. That speaks to a different kind of disconnect, more about the future.
Yeah, if someone joins and pretty quickly realizes they can't see where they go next within the company, no obvious growth track, no development plan, they start seeing the job as just a temporary stop. They're basically updating their resume mentally within a few months. Now, that's fixable with good management, clear goal setting, development talks. But if it's missing, they're already looking for the next step externally. So these tools, they really need to capture both the immediate connection issues and those longer-term clarity problems. It's complex.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you listening? We've really charted this strategic shift, haven't we? Moving from just calculating the cost after someone leaves using something like the attrition index to trying to predict the likelihood they might leave using the retention signal. And the whole point seems to be protecting that upfront hiring investment by tackling problems that are fundamentally about leadership, clear communication, and culture, not just pay.
Exactly. And they're pushing this framework out through various channels, direct sales targeting finance and HR leaders, webinars talking about the economics of keeping employees, and building it into their leadership certifications, the CRL and MRL programs. It's kind of a two-pronged approach to give the C-suite the data and give the managers the training to act on it.
Right. Which leaves us with a final thought, something for you to chew on. If this data is right, and the vast majority of why new hires leave early boils down to feeling lost or invisible or seeing dysfunction right away, how much does leadership training itself need to fundamentally change? Do we need to get much better at equipping managers to spot and fix those very human, very emotional, very cultural gaps way before any predictive signal even has a chance to fire? Maybe the real solution isn't just in the algorithm, but in deeply preparing managers for those first critical interactions. Something to think about.